Hey guys, Nick here from 4playernetwork.com, and I'm sitting here with Kevin Steffens, studio director over at Monolith, and we saw a demonstration of Middle-earth, Shadows of Mordor, and we've got about a 45-minute playable demo of it, and it looked awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
So we had a couple questions for you. Hopefully you can answer them. First of all, just on a more basic level, can you set up the game for us? Tell us again where it takes place and what where in the Lord of the Rings mythos.
Sure. So the game is set right after the events of the Hobbit, and right before the events of the Lord of the Rings. And so there's about a 60-year period there. And so at the very beginning of the game, you play as Talion, a ranger of Gondor who's stationed at the Black Gate. And so at the beginning of the game, Sauron returns to Mordor after the events in the Hobbit, and he kills you, he kills your family, and basically decimates everybody at the Black Gate. And then you are actually resurrected by a spirit of vengeance, and then you take it to Sauron.
Is the reason in which you are resurrected by this Wraith kind of under wraps right now?
It's part of the mystery that you'll...
Oh, man. Okay, I was curious. The Wraith Powers are really cool. So we've seen a few of them in the demo, but what can you tell us about the powers that the Wraith gives you in the game?
So, really, the Wraith represents the magic kind of aspects of the Lord of the Ring, and there's really two skill trees. So there's the Ranger and the Wraith, and so there's skills like the Shadow Step is a really popular one, so you can actually teleport to your enemy, and you can decimate them when you teleport to them, and you can level that up over the course of the game. There's also other abilities as far as domination, which is a key aspect of our game, so you can dominate, get inside the heads of the orcs. There's also... sorry about that. There's, let's see, what other kind of Wraith skills are there? Really, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to dominate the orcs, and fear is also another big part of the Wraith abilities. So you can actually terrify the orcs with your Wraith powers, and so you are really, Wraith-like.
Yeah, and I noticed throughout when they were showing off like the army screen where it has basically the hierarchy of all the enemies.
Right.
You could pick individual enemies and you could see like their individual traits. So like some of them have certain fears.
Yep.
How do you play on the fears, and what kind of effects do the fears have on the enemies?
Yeah, so the fears can help strip away some of their strengths, and so every enemy is going to have weaknesses and they're going to have strengths, and so what you want to do is you want to use the fears against them. So they might be afraid of the wildlife. We have Caragors, they're like the lions of Mordor. They might be terrified of the Caragors or ghouls that come out at night, and so if you can get these animals close to the orc, they'll be terrified, and once they're terrified, some of their fears will strip away. They'll run away, you can chase after them, tackle them, and then you can dominate them or you can kill them. And so fear is definitely a powerful aspect of the game.
Gotcha. So I guess that kind of leads right into the Nemesis system. So you'll have this really complex or interesting looking like enemy hierarchy, and you play. How does first of all, I guess tell us about the Nemesis system, what it means, and how it plays into that hierarchy.
So the Nemesis system really is the innovation that we believe we're bringing to action games. And the idea is that any orc in the world, any just grunt, nameless orc that you fight a million of them through the course of the game, any one of them can become your personal nemesis. And so every playthrough will be different. Every person will have a different experience. They'll never meet the same orc twice. You won't meet the same orc as your friends. And so any enemy can work their way up into Sauron's army, become a captain, and the captains are obviously the bosses, or they become a war chief, and then over the course of the game, one of your missions is to dominate the war chiefs and to basically, build your own army. So the Nemesis system is really the heart of the game.
Gotcha. And y'all have been talking a lot about the dominating of the war chiefs. That is obviously a major part of the game. Is there anything you can tell us right now about other kinds of missions you might be doing in the game?
Well, we're not unveiling that at this point, but you should rest assured that we have a full story mission that's complete, just like every other game. We have side missions, we have collectibles, we have there's power-ups, there's skills, it's an open world action adventure game, and so we'll be talking more and more about that.
Yeah, gotcha. And you did say open world, so I gotta ask. I noticed the area we played in was quite large. In what sense is this game open? Is it like fully open, or are they like very large open zones that are interconnected?
Yeah, we have open zones.
Okay. Well, they are quite large, and there's a lot of stuff going on in them. I noticed there's lots of wildlife to interact with.
Right.
I guess I was lucky enough in my demo. I took over one of the what are they called? The lion type enemy?
Caragor.
Caragor. But I also stumbled across one of those giant like
Graug.
Yeah, man. And the guy I was dealing with said, "Wow, get on that thing."
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun. What other? Can you tell us anything about other forms of wildlife you might be able to interact with?
Well,
or?
the other kind of in this demo, the other beast that is out is at nighttime. The ghouls come out, and they're kind of goblin-like creatures, and they pack attack you.
Yeah.
And so those are the only ones that we've talked about at this point.
Yeah. And you can take over both enemies and creatures, or you can dominate them and use them to your advantage in battle. Let's see. I had another question here. Yes. So the actions that you take, the decisions that you make as far as whether you dominate a war chief or kill him or whatever, do those decisions affect other regions at all, or how will that come into play in other regions or in other parts of the story?
Yes, so we haven't talked a lot about that, but one of the key things to us is we want the game to be personal for everybody that plays the game. And so over the course of the game, you are building a personal nemesis that you will face at some point in the game.
Gotcha.
And that'll be different for everybody.
Okay. And just combat, there seems to be a lot of different layers to the combat. Everything from just, basic hand-to-hand combat using swords and all that, and then stealth combat. What was kind of your inspiration as far as the combat goes, and what can you tell us about the layers of it? Because there's a lot of complexity to this.
Yeah, so I think the big thing for us from a combat standpoint is we wanted to do something that was pick up and play, that people could come to it and be familiar with it, but also had depth, like you said, and also it played a different style. So our 3 weapons really represent that. We have the bow, which is ranged combat. So anybody is familiar with playing any ranged type of combat game should be very familiar with the bow. And so you can strike from distance, and that's also the shadow strike is a distance attack. And you can level that up over time, and with the rune system.
Yeah.
And then the same with the dagger, and same with so the dagger is obviously the stealth weapon. You have to get in close to use it. And then the sword is the normal kind of melee combat. And the beautiful thing is that over the course of the game, that you're going to be leveling up the sword, leveling up the dagger, leveling up the bow, just like the other famous weapons in the mythos, that you don't just pick up a sword and throw it down and get a new sword. You're building this sword, and it's going to take on a life of its own. It's really a character in our game.
Yeah, he was showing me the rune system and how when you actually attach a rune to a sword, you can see like the inscription on the side of the sword, which is really cool.
Yeah, you're really building the legend of the sword, the legend of the dagger, the legend of the bow, and over the course of the game, the enemies will come to be terrified about your weapons just as much as they are about you.
Oh, that's cool. So you might actually, they might develop fears of your actual weapons and of your character. That's awesome. I guess, so the game's coming in October?
Yes, October 7th.
October 7th? Man, October's getting crazy. There's a lot of stuff coming, but y'all are among the first to announce your release date in October. It's early October. It's looking great. One quick question. The game is beautiful, by the way. What engine is this running on?
It's Monolith's internal technology. Gotcha. So people know it as Lithtech, but it's really, Monolith's been building its own technology for 20 years.
Yeah.
This is actually our 20th anniversary this year.
Oh, wow.
And so we've always built our own technology. So this is all homegrown.
Yeah, well, it looks gorgeous.
Great, thank you.
I guess that's all I got for you now. Kevin, thank you so much for your time.
No
I really
problem.
appreciate it. Stick here at 4playernetwork.com for more coverage, impressions, podcasts, all that from E3 2014. Thanks, guys.